are to report immediately.
Would someone explain to me why there's a stinking Soul Reaper here?
A Soul Reaper with orange-colored hair.
Alright, Bleach Part 2, we're back. Soul Society Rescue Arc. This part covers episodes 21 to 41 of the anime and adapts volumes 9 through 14 of the manga. These chapters originally ran in Shonen Jump from August 2003 to September 2004, and the anime adaptation aired between March and July 2005. But before we dive in, if you're enjoying this series or just me yapping about anime, feel free to hit the subscribe button. It helps the channel and it lets me know if you want more of this content. Just like the last part, let's look at some of the voice cast in the anime. In the English dub, Renji is voiced by Wally Winger, who some of you might recognize if you ever wanted to throw your controller at a wall playing the Arkham games, since he played the Riddler. He's also done a bunch of minor roles in Naruto, and he voiced Rufus Shinra in Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, one of my most watched movies as a kid. So I've definitely known this dude's voice for ages. On the Japanese side, we got Kentaro Ito, who's probably most well known for voicing Choji in Naruto. And for me personally, I was hyped to find out he's also the voice of Yun from Street Fighter, who was one of my mains in Street Fighter 4. Next up, we got Byakuya Kuchiki. In English, he's voiced by Daniel Warren. This guy's been around. He's voiced Igor in the Persona series. He's also popped up as Ibuki in Naruto and played Liu Bei in some of the Dynasty Warriors games. In Japanese, Byakuya is voiced by Ryotaro Akayu. You might recognize from One Piece. He voices both Kaku and Kizaru. Oh, and he voices Lee Chao Len from Tekken. Now onto a fan favorite, Yoririchi. In the dub, she's voiced by Wendy Lee, who's been a voice acting staple for decades. Not only does she voice Yoririchi, but in Bleach she also voices Tatsuki, Jinta, and Ururu. If you've watched an anime dubbed in the 2000s, you've probably heard her somewhere. In the Japanese version, Yoririchi is voiced by Satsuki Yukino, probably best known as Kagome from Inuyasha. He also voices Koala in One Piece. And last but definitely not least, we got Keisuke Urahara, my favorite hat-wearing shopkeeper. In the English dub, he's voiced by the late Michael Lindsay, who also voiced Kankuro in Naruto. In Japanese, Urahara is voiced by Shinichiro Miki. He's the voice of Roy Mustang in Fullmetal Alchemist, also Zamasu in Dragon Ball Super. Now let's get started with the plot. Unlike the last part, where I went episode by episode, I'm gonna change it up a bit this time and go character by character. Starting, of course, with... Picking up where we left off, Ichigo and the crew, Chad, Orihime, Uryu, and Yoririchi crossed into the Soul Society with one goal: rescue Rukia before the execution. Upon arriving in the Rukongai, the outer region of the Soul Society where most of the souls reside, they make their way towards the Seirete, the central stronghold of the Soul Reapers. At the gate, they're stopped by a massive gatekeeper, Jidambo. Ichigo steps forward, telling the others to stay back. This becomes his first true test in the Soul Society and showcases his growth he's undergone from his training with Urahara. Ichigo not only holds his own, but completely shatters Jidambo's axes, taking him down and earning his respect. But as Jidambo opens the gate, Gin Ichimaru, captain of the 3rd Division, shows up and effortlessly incapacitates Jidambo and forces the group back by sheer force. This moment shows that Ichigo and the captains are on a completely different level. Left with no immediate way in, the crew retreats for the night. That's when Ganju Shiba literally crashes into the plot, riding on a boar named Bonnie. He and Ichigo immediately butt heads in classic fashion. Yoririchi suggests they visit Kaku Shiba, Ganju's older sister and fireworks expert. She agrees to sneak them into the Seirete by launching them out of a giant cannon. But before they get launched, the group has to master creating a protective spiritual barrier, with Ichigo struggling. While the others grasp it fairly quickly, Ichigo lags behind. He has the raw power but not the same finesse. He ends up trading with Ganju, and through sheer force of will, he finally creates the barrier. The group, now with Ganju, get launched out of the cannon and enter the Seirete, but are separated mid-air with Ichigo and Ganju being together. As soon as Ichigo and Ganju land, they are accosted by 2 Soul Reapers, with them pairing off to face each other, with Ichigo fighting Ikaku Madarame, this plumber, doctor, astronaut looking dude. With them trading blows and Madarame being prepared, applies a septic to his wound and Ichigo being mad about it. With them clashing again, Madarame shows off his Shikai, Hozekimaru, with his blade turning into a Naginata. Ichigo is then caught off guard when the Naginata turns into a 3-section star and gets stabbed. Ichigo eventually locks in and gets the win against him and knocking him out. When Madarame wakes up, he talks to Ichigo about his captain, Kenpachi Zaraki, who is one of the captains and loves to fight strong people. Having met back up with Ganju and having a large group of Soul Reapers chasing them, they grab a hostage named Hanataro Yamada, but the Reapers don't care since he's part of a different division. With having a little help from Chad, Ichigo and Ganju fight through the Soul Reapers and start heading to the Senzakyu, where Rukia is located with Yamada. While traveling, they learn that Yamada knows Rukia and wants to help, so they gain a new ally. Upon arriving at the entrance of the Senzakyu, Ichigo is stopped by Renji and they start to battle, with Renji pushing Ichigo back since he's more powerful in the Soul Society compared to the human world, but eventually Ichigo takes home the victory. Ganju and Yamada take a injured Ichigo underground where Yamada tends to his wounds. While tending to Ichigo's wounds, Yamada notes that the hollow-like mask Ichigo had gotten last arc saved him as it took one of Renji's attacks. With Ichigo waking up, his group returns to the same entrance with no one in sight, then reaches the top of the stairs that Renji once blocked. When up the stairs, they feel immense spiritual energy, making them feel uneasy. The culprit, Kenpachi Zaraki, the captain of the 11th Division, and the person Madarame mentioned. Upon the group meeting Kenpachi and his adoptive daughter and Lieutenant Yachiro Kusajishi, Ichigo tells Ganju and Yamada to run and get to Rukia, with Kenpachi not stopping them since he's only there for a good fight, and Kenpachi giving Ichigo a free shot. Taking him up on that offer, Ichigo tries to cut him, but here we see how strong Kenpachi is, with Ichigo being unable to cut him. Kenpachi explains that two spiritual forces colliding results in the weaker one absorbing the impact, which means that the sword Ichigo has created by honing his spiritual energy to its limits is weaker than the energy leaking out of Kenpachi unconsciously. Losing his resolve, Ichigo tries to run away, and Kenpachi and he trade blows with Ichigo on the back foot. Eventually, having regained his resolve, Ichigo finally cuts Kenpachi, but it's short-lived when Kenpachi stabs him and snaps his blade in two. Kenpachi swings his Zanbakuto over his shoulder, only to stop as time comes to a halt around as Zangetsu, the manifested spirit that appears when Ichigo underwent his training, appears beside Kenpachi. Ichigo finds himself in his inner world once more, with a black and white Ichigo with yellow eyes standing before him, wielding Zangetsu, Ichigo's sword. They fight, and we see that Hollow Ichigo uses Zangetsu in ways that Ichigo didn't think of, like swinging it from the cloth wrapped around the hilt, showing his mastery of the weapon. Upon realizing Ichigo really doesn't know anything about his own blade, he and the Hollow Ichigo swap weapons. Ichigo comes back to the real world with his spiritual powers surging, with him being able to wound Kenpachi a couple of times. Kenpachi proclaims that he can go all out and removes his eye patch, resulting in a surge of spiritual power. Eventually, the fight ends with them grievously wounding each other, and Yororichi coming to Ichigo's aid, taking him away and treating his wounds. Upon waking up, Yororichi shows Ichigo his hollow mask, which again saved Ichigo, even though Yamada took the mask from him. Yororichi demands that Ichigo hand over the mask, and Ichigo relinquishes it. While Yororichi and Ichigo discuss how they got there, and Ichigo's rehabilitation, they suddenly feel Byakuya Kuchiki's spirit energy. Knowing that Ganjo and Hanatoro went to the Senzaku, where Rukia is, and is currently where Byakuya is, he flies away against Yororichi's wishes with the bone wood, the device Yororichi used to get them there. When getting there, he reunites with Rukia and they get into a yelling match over his rescue attempt. Ichigo then shifts his focus to Byakuya, with Ichigo declaring that he will leave after beating Byakuya. As they clash, Byakuya goes to release his Shikai, 1000 Cherry Blossoms, which turns his blade into 1000 tiny slender blades that look like cherry blossoms. Before this happens, Yororichi comes in and binds them. In this arc, we see Ichigo gain some big power buffs going through the hierarchy of the Soul Society, from Madarame to Lieutenant Renji, eventually going toe-to-toe with one of the captains of the divisions. Something with this arc that made me intrigued is the mystery of Ichigo's mask and how he keeps getting it back and how it saved him. We've seen how he got the mask last arc with him almost becoming a hollow, and it adds an intriguing element to this arc. Like I said in my last Bleach video, right now, personally, I like Ichigo's personality the most out of the big three's protagonists. Obviously right now, Naruto and Luffy have better development since I've seen them develop for like 500 plus episodes, while I've only seen 41 episodes of Bleach recently. But Ichigo has this brash personality that I've enjoyed compared to the others, which I feel can kind of get overbearing at times, but so far I haven't felt that way with Ichigo. I like the way he bounces off characters like Rukia, Ganju, and his fight with Madarame. Now we've gone through all of that, let's roll into the next character. Chad has two big moments in this arc. The first being after Gin shuts the gate on them, the residents of the Rokongai come out of the woodwork to see what's going on, only for a boy to recognize Chad. It's Yuichi, the parakeet that Chad protected last arc. They reunite and talk about life in the Soul Society, with Yuichi introducing his adopted brother, Hironari, and explaining that it's hard to find someone's family in the Soul Society, and often new families come together. Yuichi then explains that he has yet to find his mother. Later on, Chad sits with Yuichi on a bench and recounts how he was around Yuichi's age when he started worrying about how he looked different from everyone else and had incredible strength, which he could not control, then ruminates on the new powers he obtained. Chad and Yuichi then promise to keep searching for his mother. The next big moment is when they enter the Seirete, with him being on his own and showing how strong he is by taking on troves of Soul Reapers and somewhat inadvertently helping Ichigo and Ganji. Eventually, Chad is confronted by one of the captains, Shunsui Kyuraku of the 8th Division. With them both not really wanting to fight, Shunsui offers to have a drink with Sato, which Chad deadpan just says he's underage. With Chad needing to get past and Shunsui not moving, he fires an energy blast with Shunsui deflects it with his bare hands, then nonchalantly evading another one. With the captain showing how powerful he is, he and Chad discuss why Chad is there. After learning that he's there to save Rukia, Shunsui observes that he must have only known her for a few months, not that much of a friendship to risk his life over. Chad concludes that Ichigo wants to save her and that he does not need any other reason to put his life on the line. Upon this, Kyuraku prepares to fight Sato seriously. Then we get a flashback with Chad and Ichigo where Ichigo saves Chad from 2 thugs. With Ichigo asking why he never fights back, Chad reveals that he promised his abuelo to never use his fist for himself, revealing that as a kid he would fight anyone who annoyed him and refuse his grandfather's help until one day his grandfather Oscar stepped in from him getting beaten up, like how Chad did the same when he first met Ichigo, and Oscar gave him his coin necklace. After the death of Chad's abuelo Oscar, he moved to Japan from Mexico. We then see Ichigo coming to the rescue of Chad again, with Ichigo proposing that he and Sato fight for each other. Back with the fight, Chad unleashes a blast that destroys the captain's office, but Shunsui appears behind him and swiftly defeats him. While Chad doesn't play a central role in the Soul Society rescue arc as some other characters, the moments he does have are meaningful and go a long way to develop his character. Through the flashback, we learn more about his relationship with his abuelo, who instilled in him his strong moral code to use his strength only to protect others. This insight adds more depth to Chad's otherwise quiet and stoic demeanor. His caring nature and unwavering loyalty become even more apparent in this arc with his chat with Yuichi and his promise to Ichigo. In fights, Chad proves incredibly powerful, even among Soul Reapers. He holds his own against multiple opponents and showcases a level of strength that makes him stand out from the rest of Ichigo's human allies. At this point in the story, I think he arguably seems like the strongest in the group, at least until Ichigo's power up later this arc. Chad's fight with Captain Shunsui Kyuraku, while ending in defeat, is still significant. It shows the gap between him and the captains of the Soul Society and shows how strong Ichigo has become with his power up. It also highlights Chad's courage and determination. While he couldn't land a hit, his willingness to stand and fight shows his resolve. Overall, Chad's quieter moments and limited screen time doesn't detract from his character development. To round out the main group, we have Uryu and Orihime, who take more of a backseat during this arc as the story shifts focus towards introducing a wide array of new characters within the Soul Society. Orihime mostly serves in a support role, acting as the team's healer, most notably when she tends to Jidambo after he's slashed by Gin. Her emotional sensitivity is also on display as well, like in the scene where she expresses concern for Ichigo when he's unable to form a spirit barrier and tries to stay behind with him. Uryu and Orihime spend much of the arc paired together after the group split up, which leads to a brief skirmish with a Soul Reaper named Jirobo, who's Jidambo's brother. His Shikai ability scatters his sword into a swarm of flying blades. While this fight showcases Uryu's combat style and Orihime's defensive power, it's relatively short and doesn't significantly develop either character. explosion, with Ganji continuing to run away from him. The Soul Reaper catches up to Ganji, and Ganji throws a chili pepper smoke bomb, with them both getting caught in it. With their eyes sticking, they wander out of the smoke bomb only to slip off the edge of another nearby pit, with Ganji hanging off the edge and Yumichika hanging from Ganju's leg. They bicker and eventually fall into the pit, only to be accosted by multiple hollows and never be seen again. They just fall into a giant dumpster full of trash. With Ganju running away again and still being chased by Yumichika, he finds himself again at the edge of another pit, with Yumichika finally cornering him and injuring him. Ichigo, defeating his opponent, calls out for Ganju. Hearing this, Yumichika is shocked, giving Ganju a chance to throw a small explosive and breaking for it. With them going back and forth, Yumichika gets a good slash in. Ganju causes a large wave of sand on both sides of his opponent, causing him to leap into the air, only for Ganju to hurl a firework that sticks to Yumichika's head and explodes, making him win the fight. With Ganju and Ichigo linking back up, it plays the same as I always said with the Ichigo segment, with their paths diverging when Ichigo tells Ganju and Hanatoro to run to where Rukia is held when he fights Kenpachi. Upon reaching Rukia, Ganju stops dead in his track and reveals that he's seen Rukia before. She's the one who killed his brother. Ganju grabs Rukia's collar, with Hanatoro trying to get Ganju to let go, only to be stopped when they feel Byakuya's spirit energy and turn around to find him approaching. With Ganju not wanting to die for his brother's murderer, Hanatoro tells Ganju that he plans to stay and fend off Byakuya while Ganju takes Rukia to escape. Upon hearing this and seeing Hanatoro visibly shaking, he throws him back to Rukia's cell and faces off Byakuya, with Byakuya easily defeating Ganju. Ganju Shiba is a strong addition to Bleach in my opinion. He brings a mix of conflict and comic relief to the story. His open hostility towards Soul Reapers adds a new dynamic to the group. Similar to Uryu's initial tension with them, his resentment stems from the death of his older brother at the hands of a Soul Reaper. This makes his eventual interactions with Rukia really compelling, since she's directly involved with his brother's death, adding a layer of complexity. Ganju's approach to combat also sets him apart. Instead of relying on raw spiritual power or swordsmanship like most characters, he uses tools and tricks, such as his fireworks and turning objects into sand, which keeps his fights fresh and distinct. While he's not deeply explored as some characters yet, Ganju's presence enriches this arc with both tension and levity. His unique style and backstory makes him a memorable part of Team Ichigo. Alrighty, like with Uryu and Orihime, let's double dip again with the double R's. Renji and Rukia share considerable screen time during the Soul Society arc. Early on, we see Renji escorting Rukia to her new cell in the Senzaku. Before leaving, however, he breaks formality to tell her that Ichigo has entered the Soul Society. Shortly after, Renji is seen speaking with Captain Aizen in a storage room. Aizen, calm and composed, questions the circumstances of Rukia's execution and whether Renji truly believes she deserves to die. He hints at a deeper conspiracy, claiming he has a bad feeling about the situation. Renji's unease is reinforced during the lieutenant's meeting, held concurrently with the Captain's Council. Afterward, we have a quick cut to Rukia quietly wondering if Ichigo will be able to save her. Renji's next major appearance is his one-on-one battle with Ichigo. As mentioned earlier, Ichigo gets the dub. Following his defeat, Renji, bloodied and barely conscious, begs Ichigo to save Rukia. This feat leads into the core emotional flashback of the arc. We learn that Renji and Rukia grew up together in the Inuzuri district of the Rokongai, surviving as poor orphans who had to steal to eat. Their early friendship blossoms from shared hardship, and Rukia's compassion and fearlessness is evident as a child, standing up to bullies twice her size and giving her food to someone more vulnerable. After seeing a young man leave Inuzuri to become a Soul Reaper, the two decide to follow the same path, hoping to escape the cruelty of their environment. But even within the Soul Reaper Academy, they still face discrimination for their origins. Their bond begins to shift when Rukia is approached by Byakuya Kuchiki and is offered adoption into the noble Kuchiki family. Though Rukia is hesitant, Renji encourages her, believing she'll finally be safe and never be hungry again. But after she accepts and leaves him behind, Renji is left feeling powerless, convincing himself not to interfere. Renji's arc in this story ends with him in disgrace. After being taken to medical treatment by Izuru Kira and visited by Momo Hinamori, Byakuya interrupts, ordering Renji's imprisonment for his failure. Even in his defeat, Renji is punished for breaking rank. In his final flashback, we see a lighter moment where Renji is sparring with Kira and Hinamori, only to immediately drop everything to talk to Rukia when he sees her. After this, Renji disappears from the narrative for now, and the focus shifts back to Rukia, whose story continues with Ganju and Hanatori reaching her cell and Ganju confronting her about his brother. Then she and Ichigo reunite, and she's fearful about what Byakuya would do to him before Yoruichi comes in and binds him. We get to know these two in this arc, especially since the flashback shows us them growing up and the pivotal moment of Rukia getting adopted by the Kuchiki family. Rukia, while still the heart of this arc's conflict, takes more of a passive role in the narrative compared to her more prominent presence in the earlier episodes. With her capture and impending execution serving as the arc's central driving force, Rukia becomes less of an active participant and more of a symbolic figure, someone whose fate compels the rest of the cast to act. Gone are more of the lighter, more humorous moments we saw from her in the first arc. Here the tone is heavier and her character is portrayed with a somber, dignified calm as she resigns herself to what she believes is her fate. Renji shines in this arc for me. He embodies the conflicts between duty and friendship, particularly when it comes to Rukia. As a lieutenant of the Gotei 13, he's expected to uphold the law of the Soul Society, even if it means aiding in Rukia's execution. But Renji's personal feelings, his loyalty, his guilt, and his unspoken love for Rukia make his situation complex. His emotional turmoil comes to a head in his confrontation with Ichigo, which is one of the arc's standout moments. Overall, this arc gives Rukia and Renji emotional context. While the tone is more serious and somber, especially compared to the more lighthearted moments early in the series, this depth is what makes the arc resonate with me more. There's one big plot point I haven't touched upon yet, that being the first captain we meet in the Soul Society arc is the elusive and unnerving 3rd Division captain, Gin Ichimaru, who makes an impression by casually slamming the gate shut on Ichigo and his group's faces, smiling all the while. From there, the arc shifts into eternal Soul Society affairs, beginning with a meeting between Renji and the 5th Division captain Sosuke Aizen, who quietly questions the suspicious circumstances surrounding Rukia's execution. Not long after, all the lieutenants are called to a conference in room 2, while the captains convene separately. On the way to the lieutenants' meeting, Renji, 6th Division lieutenant, and 7th Division Lieutenant Tetsuzaimon Iba arrive only to find Momo Hinamori, 5th Division Lieutenant, waiting there. They're soon joined by the 10th Division Lieutenant Rangiku Matsumoto, who explains that the others won't arrive for another half a day. Meanwhile, the captains begin their own assembly in the 1st Division barracks. As Gin opens the door to the meeting hall, we get our first full introduction to most of the Gotei 13 captains. From left to right, we've got the eccentric and unsettling 12th Division Captain Mayuri Koretsuchi, head of R&D, the child prodigy captain of the 10th Division Toshiro Hitsugaya, the laid-back, sake-loving 8th Division Captain, Shunsui Kyoraku, who we've seen later fight with Chad. We're already familiar with the 6th Division Captain, Byaku Kuchiki, Rukia's stoic adopted brother. Beside him sits the calm healer, Retsu Unohara of the 4th Division, and the strict and silent 2nd Division Captain, Soifun. At the center is the oldest and most authoritative of all, Gen Yurosai Shigekuni Yamamoto, Captain Commander of all the Gotei 13. Across from him are the remaining captains. The composed Aizen of the 5th Division, Saijin Komamura of the 7th Division, Kaname Tozen of the 9th, and the chaotic 11th Division Captain Kenpachi Zaraki, who we've already seen clash with Ichigo. The 13th Division Captain, Jushiro Ukitake, is absent due to illness. The meeting centers on Gin's failure to kill the Ryoka, with the implication that he may have intentionally let them escape. But before tensions can escalate, an alarm sounds. Ryoka have entered the Seirete and the captains disperse, with Aizen calmly cautioning Gin not to be underestimated, a comment that draws suspicion from Toshiro. In the chaos that follows, we begin meeting more lieutenants. Kenpachi storms out, accompanied by his pint-sized lieutenant and adoptive daughter, Yachiro Kusajishi. Meanwhile, the 12th Division Captain, Kuretsuchi, and his lieutenant Nemu try to interrogate a recently defeated Ikaku Madarame, only to be interrupted by Kenpachi, prompting them to retreat. Yachiro, ever playful, claims they got lost on the way, while Madarame fills Kenpachi in on his defeat and Ichigo's strength. As the lieutenants regroup, news spread of Madarame and Yumichika's defeat, prompting Renji to run off and confront Ichigo by himself, only to lose the fight. He's found by Izuru Kira, his friend and 3rd Division Lieutenant, and taken for treatment. Despite Momo and Izuru's protest, Byakuya orders Renji's imprisonment for his insubordination. As they leave, Hitsugaya warns Hinamori not to trust the 3rd Division, especially Gin. Back at the captain's hall, Yamamoto convenes all the captains again and announces Gin will not be punished, and from now on, all high-ranking Soul Reapers will be allowed to carry and release their Zanpakutos within the Seirete, effectively putting Soul Society in a wartime state. Much to Kenpachi's delight, these wartime orders ripple through the ranks. Hinamori visits Aizen in his quarters to speak about Renji's situation. Aizen gently assures her that Renji won't be discharged, and she stays to watch him and falls asleep. By the time she wakes up, she's late for the lieutenant's meeting, and on her way she stumbles across a horrifying sight. Aizen's body impaled high on a wall. Her scream brings several lieutenants, Izuru, Tetsuzaimon, Shuhei Hisagi, and Rangiku to the scene, all stunned by the murder. Gin arrives suspiciously soon after, triggering Hinamori's memories of Hitsugaya's warning. Enraged, she attempts to attack Gin only to be blocked by his own lieutenant Izuru. Their confrontation escalates with both of them releasing their Shikai, until Hitsugaya steps in and arrests both of them, warning Gin that if he harms Hinamori, he'll kill him. While detained, Hinamori receives Aizen's final letter, claiming he was aware of the plot against him and wrote it the night before. This only deepens the mystery. Elsewhere, Tozen declares he will join the coming battle. After Kenpachi's fight with Ichigo, we get a tender flashback showing how he first met Yachiro and gave her a name. Finally, we're introduced to the last captain, kind and wise Jushiro Ukitake of the 13th Division, who is informed of Aizen's death and later steps in to prevent Byakuya from killing Ganju on the bridge where Rukia is held. Overall, I really like this part of the arc, how it introduces such a wide and fascinating range of new characters through the captains and lieutenants of the 13 divisions. This part is filled with political tension, conflicting ideologies, and complex relationships. Characters like Gin Ichimaru immediately stand out with that creepy-ass smile and cryptic behavior, and it's engaging to watch someone like Toshiro grow suspicious of him, adding a layer of internal conflict within the Soul Society that hints at something deeper. What really kept me invested is how each captain and lieutenant duo has their own unique and memorable dynamic, from the chaotic yet affectionate bond between Kenpachi Zaraki and Yachiro, which is a wild father-daughter relationship, to the contrast between Nanao Issei's serious, pragmatic demeanor and her laid-back, sake-loving captain Shunsui. These relationships are just fun to watch. Now that I've shared my thoughts on the story and characters, let's talk about some other elements that make up the Soul Society arc, starting with the fights. To be honest, from a technical standpoint, I didn't really enjoy the battles in this arc. The best way I can describe them is that they feel very 2000s anime, and not in a nostalgic or endearing way, but in a frustrating, dated sense. There's a lot of single dramatic sword slashes, repeated speed lines to convey emotion, and frequent interruptions to cut away to side characters explaining what's happening or reacting in shock. The flow of combat often feels disjointed and overly padded, with dramatic pauses or repetitive shots that sap a lot of the tension and momentum. It lacks that sense of kinetic energy and fluidity you expect from high-stakes battles. It's not hard to make comparisons, especially when you realize at the same time the Bleach dub was airing these episodes, Naruto was getting into the tuning exams. Within just a few more episodes, Naruto delivers the iconic Gaara vs Rock Lee fight, an absolute standout in the series. That being said, there's still a lot to appreciate in how the fights are presented from a design and thematic perspective. Kubo's creativity really shines when it comes to the Zanpakuto and Shikai forms. Even if the movement is lacking, the visual identity of each character's weapon brings a unique flavor to their fights. Kubo doesn't limit himself to just swords, and that's one of the most refreshing aspects of the series. You got Renji's Zanpakuto Zabimaru, which transforms into a segmented whip-like blade like we're out here playing Soul Calibur. Then there's Byakuya's, which scatters into 1,000 cherry blossom-shaped blades. Madarame's Hosekimaru becomes a 3-section star Naginata. The designs are pretty cool, and they can reflect the character's personality and fighting style. And while the fights may not visually be impressive, thematically they're a huge step up from the previous arc. In the Substitute Soul Reaper arc, we had the emotionally heavy confrontation with the Grand Fisher, but here nearly every battle carries similar emotional weight. Whether it's Renji wrestling with his guilt and loyalty, Ichigo learning to trust in his own strength, or even Kenpachi seeking meaning through combat, they're pretty good character moments. So while the animation may not always hold up, these fights still succeed in telling us who these characters are and why their battles matter, which is something that's often more impactful than flashy visuals alone. Like I said in the last part, Kubo has a great eye when it comes to character design. Even when he works within the uniformity of the Soul Reapers, the black robes, white sashes, he still manages to give each character a distinct and memorable presence. Take Kenpachi. His ragged, sleeveless Haori, wild hair, and jagged scar instantly mark him as someone dangerous and unpredictable. The eye patch, even the little bells tied to his hair, add to his aura of controlled chaos. They announce his arrival like a warning. All these design choices fit the character perfectly, in my opinion. Then you have someone like Shunsui Kyoraku, who couldn't be more different. His wide straw hat and pink flowered pattern kimono clash with the mute monochromatic aesthetic of the Soul Society, but that's kind of the point. His laid-back, seemingly lazy demeanor that opposes the bureaucracy of the Soul Reapers is written into how he dresses. That kind of layered design is everywhere in this art. From Byakuya's noble-looking design to Mayuri's twisted biomechanical appearance that immediately screams mad scientist, Kubo builds their personality backstory and role in the world into their visual identity. It's one of the major reasons the cast feels so vivid and memorable even when they're all wearing the same outfit. This arc strikes a noticeably more serious tone than the one that came before it. The stakes are higher, the fights are more intense, and the emotional weight behind the characters' decisions hits harder. But even with that shift in tone, Bleach doesn't lose the sense of humor I enjoyed. There's still that signature comedy, those little moments of levity that break through the tension without undermining it. Like within Ichigo's fight with Madarame, whether it's Ichigo's blunt reactions or the odd couple dynamics between certain squad members, that humor still shines through the arc. What really stands out in the Soul Society arc though is how it broadens the scope of the Bleach universe. We move from a story about hollows and substitute Soul Reapers to a full-blown political and military structure within the afterlife. The introduction of the Gotei 13 introduces new rivalries, ideologies, and internal conflicts. Beyond that, it establishes the storytelling formula that I remember Bleach using. Each arc introduces a new faction with new representative characters. This time, it's the Captains of the Soul Society. Next time, if I'm remembering it right, it's the Arrancar. Each group end up bringing their own style and challenges. The Soul Society arc delivered on expanding the lore and brought in a cast of characters that immediately left a mark. If it keeps the momentum up, it could become one of my favorite shonen casts. So far, Bleach has gone 2 for 2. Thanks so much for watching this video. It's definitely my longest one yet, so if you stuck around to the end, I really appreciate it. If this is any indication, the next part is probably going to be just as long, if not longer, because there's still so much to talk about with Bleach. If you haven't seen the first part of this video series yet, you can click on the screen right now to check it out. It covers the early setup and how Bleach introduces us to its world. And if you're interested in seeing the next part as soon as it drops, please consider subscribing to the channel. That one click honestly goes a long way in helping me keep making these videos. And it lets me know that people are enjoying the content. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.